culture, rather than to fragment our justification for using the resource, seems to me to have more legitimacy than just trying to say, well, I use it for this, and this is all I use it for. You know, and I think most of us would say, you know, that there's no separation between medical use and the experience, the spiritual healing that we get from this resource. And you can't really separate the medical use from the nutritional benefit that you get from eating the seed. And you can't really separate the religious use from the nutritional, because we're all thankful for the food that we receive. And so the thing that I'm seeing is that the rationale has been fragmented. And I'm curious if there is a legal purchase that can be gained by just saying, look, you know, I'm a medical user, which I am. I'm a religious or a spiritual user, which I am. I'm a cannabis scholar. I respect nature. You know, my rationale for using this resource is enormous. And yet, what I'm hearing is that unless it fits into the legal constructs that govern the unobjective courts, then we don't have any right to be there. And I'm wondering if there wouldn't be just some major benefit to stop fragmenting the rationale and just say, look, we're the global culture. We're the only truly global culture. We've been in existence since before time began, according to the Pygmy culture. And so to just assert ourselves as that, rather than saying, well, this group wants hemp for food, and this group wants hemp for religion, and this group wants hemp for recreation. And just to say, okay, look, you know, we're out of the closet, and we don't need to justify our use of this or our reverence for this. We don't need to couch it in terms of the church. We don't need to couch it in terms of medicine. We just need to assert our cultural right to exist.
Well, I agree with you, like on a philosophical level, but in terms of making things happen, I think legal change is very incremental. You're not going to see sweeping societal change happening in the courts. It's going to happen with the people. And so, as far as legal reform, it's going to be incremental by the nature of legal reform. Legal reform is all about keeping the status quo and trying to not upset the whole apple cart. I fully agree with you. I think that is a good way to like unite people and look to our commonalities instead of our differences, and I think you have a very valid point. I don't know if
there's no legal protection for a cultural existence?
Not in the United States, unfortunately.
I believe I've read that we're a signatory to the International Convention on Human Rights, and it has a provision in there for cultural. We're not? Oh, okay.
But there's a way to get there, which is that we signed the United Nations Charter, which says that we're bound to enforce human rights law, which they adopted, and we can say, well, we didn't do it. But that's like, I didn't sign off for the marijuana laws either. I got to follow them, you know? And so this is another thing that you would really need to find the construct that works with that. And that also would give you the protection for the practice of your religion, because the Universal Declaration gives that. Now, when you're talking about the culture, the only thing I can think of is the anti-genocide. Until you get to the point where you're saying they're trying to destroy the culture, somehow establish it, and then somehow so that they're trying to destroy it.
That's in fact what's happened.
But again, it has to do with this whole construct that the U.S. picks and chooses which treaties to follow and so forth. And I think on the human rights side, we do have something to that. I'm not sure on the genocide treaty. Are we bound to that one? Or?
I think we are, but any treaty that is ratified by Congress can always be superseded by a subsequent legislative enactment. So what happens is Congress doesn't like a treaty, they just pass a law that supersedes it. And the treaties don't trump congressional acts. Whatever's last in time is what trumps. And so what we have seen is you know, some Congress will pass a fantastic, they'll ratify a fantastic treaty, and then the next Congress will say, you know what, we don't like that treaty. We're just going to write a law that goes against everything that treaty says. And that's why the U.S. is in the place it is in the world community. We don't even follow our own treaties. It's a true shame.
Didn't do it with the Indians either.
That's right. One question?
Actually, my friend Ross Macahana, better known as Fed Guerrero, lives in Wayne Park, and he was arrested not too long ago. They ignored the state, or ignored his federal right. He has state right and federal right. But I have a question. If you have as part of your religion, if you use it as a medicine, I would think that you'd be, even under your, as part of the practice of the religion, you use holistic medicines. And if you're using a medicine all the time, like the person who was in the park, then wouldn't you be able to use, if I'm using medicine all the time as part of my religion, most religions say you have to, you do it sacrament at this time, but if you're using it medicinally, you're going to be using it all the time, or more than anybody else. Would that be
Like somebody who's needs insulin can carry it around with them. They don't, throw you out of the park because you got insulin or a needle in your pocket.
He's actually trying for accommodation out because his house he needed some improvement. He didn't fix it. They actually put him on probation. He's using an excuse that he can't fix his house because he has plants growing there. And the workers come there to work, if they're putting himself in jeopardy. So he's asking the courts for accommodation for his religious use to order it, and it's being tied up right now. So just wanted to, as other people, as an accommodation for the religions. There aren't too many. There's only a couple around the bar. I think $1
Yeah, there's Benny Guerrero, and there's the Bauer case, and another Valray case. And all these cases are like in the Ninth Circuit where we are right now. So there's good case law that says that you have a good defense to federal marijuana possession charges if you're a Rastafarian. However, in all those cases, the courts denied a defense to importation, possession with intent to distribute, with other heavier charges. And so what the courts have said is, RAFRA gives Rastafarians a defense to simple possession, but if they want to possess with intent to distribute, if they want to cultivate, manufacture, there's no defense yet. And I think that the case that will establish the defense is going to be a case where very tightly circumscribed religious use, where people who don't use it all the time, day and night, as some religions do, because then the courts are going to say, how can we regulate it if you can use it whenever you want? So if you have something like the UDB with a small risk of diversion, it's not used all the time, there's certain boundaries on when it's used and when it's not, and there's certain sacred use and there's a profane use that is discouraged. I think that type of religion will gain acceptance before a religion that says, cannabis is my sacrament, I have a right to be in communion with the divine 24/7. I don't think the courts are going to buy that.
Although Ron Kaczynski is taking that, he's got an appeal in the federal court which was shot down, and he's resurrected it, so keep an eye out for, if anybody can make a breakthrough on that, Ron might be the guy to do it.
And one final question, because we're running very low on time. Annie Harrison?
Yeah, I'd like you to comment briefly, if you could, on prospects for Eddie Lepp and his Rastafarian argument for cannabis cultivation in San Francisco federal court, and whether you think this case, as one of his attorneys, meets the barrier for religious use.
Well, that's a tough question. I'm going to let somebody else handle it because I have been one of his attorneys and I can't comment on a pending case. And I know I sound like Justice Roberts. I can't comment on anything pending before the court, but I think it'd be inappropriate. Anything I said would be used against me. So I'll let somebody else handle it.
Well, I'm not sure about the prospects, but I think that he's got one difficulty is making the transition from being a medical garden to being a medical and religious garden, because I'm not sure that all the patients who are there would necessarily fall into that category. But that being said, that he's got a rough road to hoe on that, I do think that the idea of bringing in the religious use in federal court is probably one of his best bets to make some progress with his particular case. My guess is that if he can work it out right to be onerous enough for them to deal with it, they might just be willing to drop it or come up with some kind of agreement that people will work out, and that for a bargaining chip, I think it's a good one. As far as we'll actually end up in court, I'm